Ladies and gentlemen, my name is John Colson. I'm a Governor of the Shrine of Remembrance, and on behalf of the trustees, the life governors, and the governors of the Shrine, I warmly welcome you to your annual service. Indeed, talking to Laurie just a moment ago, we were here 12 months ago. Little did we know at that stage the year that was facing us, and let's hope we don't have another year like that. May I also honour the traditional owners of the land on which we stand and sit, the peoples of the Huron Nation, and welcome their elders, past, present, and emerging. Your MC this afternoon, our dear friend, Laurie.
I'd like to call on Fraser Harry to make the address, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. Before I start, I'd just like to make a couple of quick thank yous and welcomes. Firstly, to the Salvation Army Band, welcome and thank you again for continuing the tradition with the 2nd 22nd Battalion Association, and also to the Bendigo group. They can't be here today, obviously, but they're watching this live together in Bendigo. The 2nd 22nd Battalion was formed on the 1st of July 1940 as part of the 23rd Brigade, attached to the 8th Division, Australian Infantry Forces. The battalion's personnel were drawn from the state of Victoria, around a third from rural Victoria, but the bulk from the suburbs of Melbourne. My father, Bill Harry, was among the number. Training took place at Rabaul near Seymour, then Bonagilla just outside Wodonga. The 900 or so members of the 2nd 22nd formed the nucleus of Lark Force, joined by a detachment from the 2nd 10th Field Ambulance, a battery from the 4th Anti-Tank Regiment, Fortress Engineers and Signallers, and a 29-member Salvation Army Band. In 1941, Lark Force was shipped to Rabaul on the island of New Britain in what is now known as Papua New Guinea. They're also joined by a detachment from the New Guinea Volunteer Rifles and No. 24 Squadron RAAF. Their role was as a garrison force to defend Rabaul and the adjacent region from any possible Japanese threat. The events that unfolded were tragic. In early January 1942, the Japanese started bombing Rabaul in advance of an invasion. By the 22nd of January, No. 24 Squadron had only 3 aircraft remaining, so was withdrawn to the mainland. There was no naval, further military or other support provided by the Australian government. Lark Force were insufficiently equipped with weapons and ammunition. Often the ammunition they were provided with was faulty or not designed for the weapons they had. There was no planning for possible lines of retreat should they be overwhelmed, no supply dumps, no real communication with local villages outside Rabaul should their help be required. Lark Force were effectively hostages to fortune, directed to remain and fight even though the outcome was obvious. In the early hours of the 23rd of January 1942, the Japanese landed. Estimates put the Japanese force numbering up to 20,000 men against the roughly 1,400 of Lark Force. They stood no hope. After several hours of fighting, Lark Force Command sent out the message, "Every man for himself." Of course, it was a shambles. Some men died in the invasion. Several days later, the Japanese massacred 150 Australian troops at Tol and later at Gasmatter. Many of these soldiers were men who'd surrendered. They were tied together in small groups, led into the scrub and bayoneted. Others died of malaria or dysentery while on the run in the jungle. Some died in spasmodic skirmishes with the Japanese up and down the island. The majority, however, were captured and held as prisoner of war in Rabaul. 6 months after the Japanese invasion, over 1,000 prisoners held in Rabaul, the majority being men from the 2nd 22nd, were taken from the prison camps and placed aboard the Montevideo Maru, an unmarked Japanese prison ship. They were never heard from again. At later emerging, the ship was torpedoed near Hainan Island in the Philippines with no prisoners surviving. This remains Australia's greatest single maritime tragedy and largest single loss of its countrymen held in captivity by any country in any war. Incredibly, around 300 of the original 1,400 men of Lark Force made it off New Britain, most via the north or south coasts and back to Australia. Much of this was due to the heroic efforts of men such as Patrol Officer Keith McCarthy, local timber merchant Frank Holland, and plantation manager Rod Marsland. Their stories are legendary. The men of the 2nd 22nd who survived retained a great bond after the war, never forgetting their mates who didn't come home. For most of them, this annual service at the shrine was the most important day of the year. Annual battalion reunions at Rabaul occurred too, although it was sad to see the numbers dwindle over the years. We fondly remember from these later years men like Fred Cole Morgan, who was one of only 2 members of the Salvation Army Band who survived the war, Pip Appel, Russ Law, Bert Smith, Laurie Luxmore, Laurie's father, Fred Field, Ted Best, Nipper Webster, who survived the Tol massacre, Jock Woods, Derek Pitts, Jack Moyle, and others and their wives and families. As far as can be established, there is only one remaining 2nd 22nd Battalion member still alive, Andy Bishop. Unfortunately, he can't come today, but we think of him obviously at a time like today during the service. Unfortunately, last year we lost battalion member Norm Finesse. He was a wonderful man and good friend, and he did so much to keep this battalion association going. Finally, we thank the Victorian RSL and the Melbourne Shrine of Remembrance for allowing us to pay tribute today. Today we remember the men of the 2nd 22nd Battalion, Lark Force. Thank you.
Thank you, Fraser. Now we call on the band to play the Royal Hymn. Would you mind standing, please?
Take post.
Fraser and I will lay a wreath at the moment. After that, anyone else with a wreath or flowers can proceed. Thank you.
Please come forward with your poppies, everybody, and place them in the urn on the side of the stone of remembrance. No ceremony, just come forward. Thanks, everybody. Fraser, thank you for those wonderful words about a wonderful battalion. Let us now recite the Ode of Remembrance as a tribute to those men and women. They shall grow not old as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Please remain standing, everybody, for the singing of our national anthem. Shrine guard, fall out. Guard inwards, back to you, Laurie.
Thank you, everybody. That's the end of the service now. We're going to have a drink or something at the cars if anyone wants to come around and get together around there. Okay, thank you.